Did you know about these 5 true Target horror stories? Don't watch these horror stories alone, especially the last one. This happened years ago when I was 19. It was summertime and I was back at my parents' house during college break. Our neighborhood sat just behind a shopping plaza with a few restaurants and stores. On the edge of that plaza was a Target, place we shopped at all the time. One evening I decided to walk there alone to grab a few snacks. I had my car, sure, but it was a nice quiet night, and I figured the walk would be refreshing. From our house, it was about 15 minutes on foot. The streets were empty. No cars passing, no neighbors outside, just me walking under the dim glow of the streetlights. Eventually, I came up behind Target, circled around to the parking lot, and went inside. The store itself was calm. I headed straight to the snack aisle, picked up what I wanted, checked out, and started back toward home. Everything seemed completely normal, at least at first. As I stepped out into the night and crossed through the parking lot, I noticed someone behind me. I remembered hearing the doors slide open after I walked out. Someone had left right after me. I assumed they were just heading to their car, so I didn't think much of it. But when I turned toward the sidewalk, I could still hear footsteps echoing behind me. Steady, deliberate. That uneasy feeling hit me hard. Late at night, the area was silent. You notice every little sound. I glanced back and saw him, a man walking at a distance, following the same path as me. I kept telling myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe he lived nearby, maybe he was walking too. But the longer it went on, the less likely that seemed. By the time I left the shopping area and entered the darker neighborhood streets, he was still there. No shopping bag, nothing in his hands. He hadn't bought anything. My heart started racing, picked up my pace. He kept the same speed, always keeping the same distance, but maybe just a little closer each time I checked. When I finally reached my street, I turned right quickly, my house only halfway down. I walked fast for a few seconds before my nerves gave out completely. I broke into a full sprint. I ran straight up the driveway, yanked the door open, and slammed it shut behind me. My chest was heaving, adrenaline pumping, safe at last. But then, I looked out the window. He walked by, not rushing, not running, just walking slowly past my house. A minute later, I saw him again, this time heading back in the opposite direction. And just when I thought it was over, about 10 minutes later, a car rolled down the street, slow, creeping along at maybe 5 miles per hour. It drove past my house, to the end of the block, then circled back. I couldn't see the driver's face, but in my gut I knew it was him. That's when it hit me. This guy hadn't just been some random late-night shopper. He was following me, watching me. I never saw him again after that. But to this day, whenever I walk home at night, I can't shake the thought, what if I hadn't started running? Back when I was younger, I worked at Target as a cart pusher. Most of my shifts were in the afternoons or evenings, and sometimes they stretched late into the night. Weekends were different. I'd usually work mornings, but this particular night, I was out in the parking lot well past dark, gathering up carts by myself. The store had been busy earlier, so there were carts scattered everywhere. As the evening slowed down, the lot grew quieter. I actually liked that part of the shift. The hum of traffic fading, the parking lot nearly empty, the fluorescent lights buzzing above me. While hauling in another row of carts, I noticed something strange. Inside the store, in the dimly lit Target cafe, which had already closed hours earlier, someone was sitting alone. The lights were off. The place was supposed to be empty, but there he was. He wore all black, hood pulled up, jacket zipped. He didn't have food, drinks, or even a shopping bag. Just sitting there, head tilted downward, occasionally glancing around. It gave me a weird feeling, but I shrugged it off at first. People wander in sometimes. I kept doing my job, collecting carts, trip after trip, but every time I wheeled them back inside, he was still there. An hour passed. He hadn't moved. When I brought in the very last set of carts, I glanced toward the cafe again and he was gone. Relieved, I figured my shift was basically over. I had about 10 minutes left, so I went to return a flatbed cart to the back room near the reception. That part of the store was silent at night, just the faint hum of the overhead lights and the echo of my own footsteps. As I parked the flat and turned to head out, I heard footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate. I turned, expecting to see a coworker. Instead, it was him, the man in black. He was standing at the far end of the corridor just watching me. My stomach dropped. He wasn't supposed to be back there. This was employees only. Before I could say anything, he darted behind one of the shelving rows and vanished from sight. I bolted up front to find my manager. Breathless, I told him what I'd just seen. Together, we went back toward the receiving area. At first, it looked empty. Then we heard a faint shuffle echoing from the tall storage aisles. We caught just a glimpse of him, My manager called out, "You can't be back here. Employees only." That's when the man's voice rang out from between the shelves, cold and threatening. "Take another step and I'll shoot you." Every hair on my body stood up. My manager immediately raised his hand slightly and said, "Okay, we're leaving." We backed away slowly, never turning our backs until we hit the corner. The moment we were out of sight, we sprinted back toward the main floor. My manager called security and then ordered the store evacuated. Within minutes, police were on the scene. I stood outside in the parking lot with a handful of late-night customers and employees, my heart still racing. After what felt like forever, officers came out with the man in handcuffs. Turns out he didn't even have a weapon. He'd made it up to scare us. But here's the thing, if he didn't have a gun, what was his real plan? Why lurk in a closed cafe? For over an hour? Why follow me into the employee-only area? I still don't know. All I do know is that night was the most terrified I've ever been working at that store. This happened back when I was a kid sometime in the late 90s or maybe the very early 2000s. I don't remember my exact age, but I'd guess around 10 or 11. What I do remember are the details of this night, because they're burned into my memory forever. I used to go shopping with my mom all the time, and one of her favorite stops was Target. I didn't mind. I actually liked that store. When I was younger, I'd spend most of the time in the toy aisles, but as I got a little older, I gravitated toward electronics and video games. My mom always knew where to find me, so it became a routine. One night, though, we went a little later than usual. The store was quieter than I was used to because long stretches of aisles felt almost empty, just buzzing fluorescent lights overhead. My mom went off to do her shopping, and like always, I drifted into the electronics section. I remember browsing the video game shelves before wandering into one of the aisles near the TV displays. Target used to have televisions playing commercials, music videos, or previews for new movies. The sound from them usually filled the area, making it feel a little less lonely. But then something changed. Out of nowhere, the TV above me crackled. The cheerful ads cut off with a high-pitched screech, followed by static. I froze, staring at the screen as an eerie tune began playing. It wasn't upbeat music, or a commercial. It sounded dark, wrong, like something that didn't belong in a store. Screen dimmed almost completely black, and then a shadowed figure appeared. You could barely make out the outline of his head. No features, just the silhouette of someone staring straight into the camera. Then he spoke. His voice wasn't normal, it was warped, distorted, like he was using some kind of voice changer. The words tumbled out in a strange, rambling way. I couldn't understand exactly what he was saying. Maybe I was too young, or maybe it was just nonsense, but I knew I shouldn't be hearing it. I stood frozen, heart hammering, the rest of the aisle empty and silent around me. For 30 endless seconds, I just watched this faceless figure speak through the store's TV. Finally, survival instincts kicked in. I bolted down the aisle and across the store until I spotted another shopper. Just seeing another person eased the fear enough for me to slow down, but I didn't stop until I found my mom. Out of breath, I told her what I'd seen. At first, she didn't believe me, but I begged her to come look. We went back together, my stomach sinking with every step. When we reached the aisle, the TV that had been playing that disturbing video was off, completely black. The other TVs nearby had gone back to their usual ads and music videos, but that one was just silent. My mom brushed it off, finished her shopping, and we left. But I couldn't shake what I saw. Was it some kind of hack? A prank? Or something else? All I know is that it wasn't a normal advertisement. And even after all these years, whenever I think about that shadowed face on the screen, I still get chills. A few years back, I worked at Target as a cashier. It wasn't a long job, maybe 6 months, but overall it was decent. My coworkers were kind, the environment wasn't too stressful, and most customers were polite. But there was one night that I'll never forget, and it turned what should have been a normal shift into something completely chaotic. It was a busy day, customers steadily moving through my checkout lane. Then a woman in her 40s stepped up, and from the moment she arrived, I felt something was off. She wasn't buying anything. Instead, she wanted to return a bottle of olive oil. I picked it up and immediately noticed the label. It wasn't even a Target product, it was Great Value, which is Walmart's store brand. I told her calmly that I couldn't process the return. That's when things began to spiral. Her face twisted with anger. She insisted she had bought it there. I explained, again pointing out the brand, and even redirected her to customer service, telling her that's where returns are handled. But she snapped, shouting that they wouldn't take it back and that I had to do it. The louder she got, the more people in line started drifting away, not wanting to be anywhere near the argument. Within minutes, my manager came over, hearing the commotion. She backed me up, explaining the same thing. that we couldn't take a Walmart product as a return, but the woman wasn't having it. She screamed, ranted, and cursed, her voice cutting through the store. Then, just when we thought the argument was about to die down, she did something I'll never forget. She stormed over to one of the small fridges at the checkout lanes, the ones filled with bottled drinks. She grabbed a soda, shook it violently, and walked back toward us with this furious look in her eyes. Before I could even react, she cracked it open and sprayed it all over me and my manager. Sticky liquid splattered across our clothes, dripping onto the register, the floor, everywhere. We were stunned. She tossed the half-empty bottle to the ground, then darted back to the fridge and grabbed another. She shook it up, opened it, and sprayed it again. At that point, my manager and I had no choice but to retreat. There was no way we were going to confront her directly. It was like she had lost all sense of reason. Security tried to intervene, but at our store, the guards weren't actual police. They couldn't do much other than try to guide her out. She screamed, cursed, and flung insults before finally storming out on her own. The cops were called, and she was permanently banned from the store. After that, things went back to normal, but I'll never forget the image of her shaking up that soda, her eyes filled with rage, and spraying it like a weapon. The rest of my time at Target, I always wondered what would have happened if she'd taken it even further. This happened about 10 years ago, back when I was in high school. I was 16, living with my parents and my brother in a quiet suburban neighborhood. My bedroom was upstairs, facing the backyard. It was summer, so I didn't have school the next day. My brother was in his room late into the night playing video games, and I could hear his muffled shouts and button clicks through the wall. By around 1 in the morning, his noise finally stopped. I figured he'd gone to bed. I wasn't quite ready to sleep, though. I was lying in bed, half awake, watching some late-night shows with only a dim lamp glowing in the corner. Eventually, around 2 a.m., I decided to call it a night. I got up to head to the bathroom when something caught my eye. My window overlooked the backyard, and just as I turned, I froze. There was a man standing at the far end of our yard. At first, I thought my tired eyes were playing tricks on me, but no one was really there. He wasn't moving, just standing still, staring at the house. The strangest part? He was wearing what looked like a Target employee uniform. A red polo, khaki pants, even a name tag that glinted faintly under the moonlight. He looked young, maybe my age or a little older, with short blonde hair. My heart started racing. Who just stands in a stranger's yard at 2 in the morning? I debated waking my parents or brother, but curiosity got the better of me. Instead, I crept downstairs and flicked on the back patio light, hoping the sudden brightness would scare him off. Through the dining room window, I could still see him motionless, staring. When the light came on, he finally shifted, his head turned toward the glow, then toward the house. I ducked down, afraid he'd seen me. By the time I peeked again, he was slowly walking away, vanishing toward the side of the yard. I waited, watching the empty yard for what felt like forever before. Returning to my room. For 10 long minutes, I kept scanning the dark tree line, but he never came back. That night, I barely slept. Was he trying to break in? Was he just lost? Or worse, was he watching us for a reason? The next day, I told my family. We were unsettled, but without proof or damage, there wasn't much anyone could do. I tried to brush it off until a couple of weeks later. I was at our local Target just running errands on a busy Saturday afternoon when I saw him, the same guy. He wasn't at the register. He was walking past the checkout lanes in the distance. I froze. It was him. I was sure of it. He must have noticed me staring, because he suddenly stopped, turned around, and walked the other way, without saying a word. I didn't stick around. I finished paying, left the store, and my stomach sank the entire drive home. After that day, I never saw him in our backyard again. Stranger still, even though I shopped at that Target often, I never saw him working there again either. I don't know why he was in my yard that night or why he disappeared just as suddenly as he appeared.